بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
अस्सलामु अलैकुम। आज जो मेरा sorry, this is supposed to be the English broadcast. It is Thursday, the 4th of August 2022, and we welcome you to our broadcast. Reflections on the Holy Quran, and this is broadcast number 345 in that series. And these days we are looking at the meanings of the words of chapter 2 verse 102 of the Holy Quran, and this is broadcast number 26 in looking at the words of this verse of the Holy Quran. These broadcasts are brought to you by LASER, Lahore Ahmadiyya School of Education in Religion, which is a department of the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, also known as Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishat-e-Islam. This organization, the Ahmadiyya movement, was established by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh, who taught that although other people say that after the Holy Prophet Muhammad, another prophet will come, this cannot be correct, because the Holy Quran says that the Holy Prophet is Khatamun Nabiyyin, and the Holy Prophet himself explained this term by saying, La Nabi Abadi, no prophet after me. So now no prophet will come, whether an old one or a new one. And the companions of the Holy Prophet Raziyallahu Ta'ala anhum were worried, because they said to the Holy Prophet Sallam that prophets appeared in other communities, and after a prophet passed away, some years later that community would go astray. So what will happen to Muslims? Because in the other communities, prophets used to come. And the Holy Prophet said that the reformers, Mujaddideen, will be sent by Allah to reform the Muslims, to reform their practices and their understanding of the Holy Quran and so on. Not Islam itself. Islam doesn't need any reform. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib claimed that he was in that chain of reformers, Mujaddideen, which God had sent at different times in different countries. But he explained that his distinction was the fact that the Hadith also speaks of the coming of the Messiah and Mahdi. Now, if no prophet can come, then how can a Messiah or the Messiah come who was a prophet? So Hazrat Sahib explained that this refers to, these are titles for a mujaddid, a reformer. And he said that he was the mujaddid for whom these titles had been used. Of course, this led to disagreement because some people accepted Hazrat Sahib's explanation and claim, and other people did not accept it. But the sad thing was that those who rejected Hazrat Sahib's claim started calling Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad and members of his Jamaat as heretics and kafirs and so on. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, as he always did, returned to Hadith. And he said, the Holy Prophet said that if one reciter of the Kalima says to another reciter of the Kalima that you're a heretic, you're a kafir, the person uttering these words is the one who's closer to heresy. So we must not do so. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib also taught that although people believe that part of the prophetic revelation has been missed out from the Holy Quran, like Ayah Rajam and Surah Walayat and so on, this cannot be correct. Because Allah says in the Holy Quran that Allah says, I revealed this Holy Quran and I will protect it. So how can something that has God's protection have something missing in it? Or worse still, some people say that some commandments which are in the Holy Quran are now abrogated, cancelled. That command no longer applies. So didn't God know what he was revealing? That a few years later he had to repeal that command. So Hazrat Sahib said this is not true. Hazrat Shah Waliullah says that Muslims believe that more than 500 commands of the Holy Quran have been abrogated. And then he reduces that to a smaller number, but still. So nothing is missing from the Holy Quran, and nothing has been repealed or deleted from the Holy Quran by way of commandment, although the words still remain. So the whole of the Holy Quran is applicable as it has always been. And of course, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad taught that jihad is a fundamental duty of every Muslim. But jihad as defined by the Holy Prophet, which was not that you take the sword and kill people, which was that, and this was defined in this was defined in terms of fighting. When returning from fighting, the Holy Prophet said, we return from the minor jihad Jihad Asghar, to the major jihad, the major struggle, Jihad Kabir. And then he said Jihad Kabir is Jihad bin Nafs, a struggle with your own soul to do the right thing. So let us turn to the Holy Quran. As I said, chapter 102, and because it's a long chapter, I only recite the verse that we're going to, that part of the verse that we're going to speak about. And today it's the last three words of the verse 102. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لو كانوا يعلمون. Did they? But no. So this goes back to the earlier text that says, and certainly they know that he who buys it has no share of good in the hereafter, and surely evil is the price for which they have sold their souls. Did they? But no. So the words we're going to look at is Law, Kanu, and Ya, Lamu. So let us turn to my notes. Law, that's a conditional particle, if. And that is all you can say about that. And the next word is Kanu. Now this has two segments, a verb and a pronoun, and they were. And its root is Kaf Wa Noon. And this root appears in three forms, a total of 1,390 times. The root is Kaf Wa Noon, as I said. And 1,358 times it appears as Kana. And then 27 times as Makan. This is basically the Arabic form of the English to be. So you will see it used or translated as they used to, they were, you are, while you were, they were, be, even become, be, is, as in chapter 2, verse 94, which we just had. Qul in kanat. There it's used as is. You are, they were, and so on. Were you, etc. So, and and you've seen that it's used in the form of all three tenses: present, is. In chapter 33, verse 51, where it says, Kana Allahu aliman hakima. You translate that as God is, Allah is alim and hakim. You wouldn't say was. So there it's being used as present tense. Whereas if you go and look at chapter 16, verse 120, I think it is, it's used as past tense. Inna Ibrahima kana ummatan. Abraham the implication is wasn't an individual, but Abraham in himself was like a community which is obedient, the whole community. Of course, this is being revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, so it can't be present tense or future tense. Because Abraham, Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, had died a long, long time before the Holy Prophet Muhammad. So you can see that it is used in all senses. And then, of course, it's used, an interesting use of this word is that for something to happen. And that is happened sort of quickly. And some people say that, that means that there is nothing and something is created out of nothing and so on. And people refer to the verse of the Holy Quran, kun fayakun, that God says, and it is. But that doesn't mean that it happens instantaneously. What it means is that things are set in motion that are going to cause it to happen. And Imam Raghib had, Rahmatullah Alayh, had an interesting interpretation, and he said this word is used when something is going to change into something else, but of a higher status. And he said if something is changing into something of a lower status, then that is called fasad. So when we have, Kaun Allah al-Ashiya, it says that God created. Literally, you could say invented, but he created everything. And Quran says, Badiyu samawati wal ard, chapter 2, verse 117. Then the meaning that God is the one who created this universe out of nothing. And how? That's the next verse. When he decides something, then he says, kun fayakun. He says, and it is. And but that means that he sets in motion the laws, the rules, the physics and chemistry and biology and everything that is going to bring those things into being. And, we don't know when previously, but God says that in chapter 59, verse 22, that God is called Musabbir, who fashions, who creates. And so when God creates something the first time, then at the same time, as I said, he creates the size of it. And then after that, things sort of work according to that size. And God says, once I've created that, then I don't interfere in it. And then this was the debate. People say God can do anything and everything. Yes, it is true, he can. But does he? And this was the demand made by the Quraysh. Their demand to the Holy Prophet was, okay, we'll stand and watch. You go up to heavens and then come down bearing a book with the cover saying Quran, and we'll believe. And the Holy Prophet said, well, I'm not a magician. This is not a prophet's task. My task is to tell you what God's guidance is. And then if you do it, it'll be good for you. If you don't do it, well, then, you will regret it. And we had some of this yesterday, where human beings do things without thinking and, create problems for themselves. The next word is ya'lamun. And again, it's two segments, ya'lamu verb and then pronoun. And its root is ayn la mim, and that root appears in 14 forms in the Holy Quran and a total of 854 times. 382 times as alima and 105 times as ilm, 163 times as alim, and 73 times as alamin, 49 times as lam, and 18 times as alim, and so on. Some of these words like ilm and malumat and malum and muallim, these words have come into Urdu as they are. And more or less have the same meaning as in Arabic, although it's sort of, compared to Arabic, the meaning is restricted, because ilm means to gain knowledge about something, complete knowledge about something. And as we've seen this, that ilm can be categorized in many different ways. You can have knowledge that is theoretical. And the example I usually give is, calculus. You learn about differentiation and integration, and you find out, how to find out the rate of change of one thing compared to another, and find out how to calculate the area under a curve, or volume of a solid of revolution, etc. And that's it. You're done. But then the other type of knowledge is where theory is not enough. It's like a surgeon. If I read a book on how to remove an appendix, and your appendix needs to be removed, and I try and do it, the British government will take a very dim view and have me arrested and put in prison. Why? Because although I might have read a book on how to remove an appendix, I have no practical knowledge of doing that. And first, after reading the theory, you go into an operating theatre and you watch a surgeon and you assist them, and etc., etc., and then you see what problems they have and how they overcome them. And then the surgeon you might say, okay, you can have a little go under my supervision, and so on. And then you will learn how to remove an appendix. And you can categorize knowledge of things in another way. And that is that knowledge you gain about some situation, something, simply by using your brain, rationally thinking about it and using logic. But then, of course, can be completely wrong. For thousands of years until Galileo, people believed that if you have two things in your hand, one is heavier than the other, and you hold your hands out and let go, the thing that is heavier will hit the ground first. Now, they based that knowledge on rational thinking and logic, etc. But then Galileo came along and he said, hang on a second, why don't I take two things, one in being heavy, one being light, up to the top of Leaning Tower of Pisa and drop them and see what happens. Which he did, and lo and behold, both of them hit the ground at the same time. Or another example, for thousands of years, because human beings live on Earth, they said Earth is the center of the universe. And then, of course, Christianity came along with its concept of Son of God appearing on Earth, and they said, yes, quite right. Earth has to be the center of the universe because God sent his Son here. And but of course it wasn't. Earth orbits the sun, and the whole galaxy orbits something else, and so on. So the other type of knowledge is that it's not just based on thinking and brain and logic and so on, but also there is observation involved. That you look at things and see what they are, etc. And this is what God means when God says in chapter 2, verse 31, that I taught Adam the names of everything. It doesn't mean that for years Adam sat there sort of shaking back and forth as many students do in madrasas as they're submitting the Holy Quran to memory and shake back and forth. And Adam did the same thing, that for hundreds of thousands of years he sat there committing the names of everything to memory. But what it means is that God said, I've given Adam the ability to find out about things and learn. So, and earlier on we discussed that, how in this context, speaking and preservation of knowledge, writing, how they are important, and what humanity has achieved by preserving knowledge in this way. And then God says in chapter 34, verse 48, Allamul Ghuyub, knower of the unseen. That God is something, God is a being from whom nothing can be hidden. He knows everything. A few things we know. Who was it? Was it Newton? I think he, after a lifetime of research just in physics, he said that, people sort of said, oh, you explain so many things and you know so much and so on. And he said, no, I'm like a little boy who's playing on the seaside. And he just notices one or two seashells, which are interesting. And there are thousands of them to be found. And he just finds one or two. And the interesting thing about chapter 72, verse 26, is what this non-Ahmadi dictionary says. About chapter 72, verses 26 and 27, which are about God knows the unseen, but he doesn't reveal that knowledge of unseen except to his Rasul or Rasuls, his messengers. It's a better translation, I think. Now, in Mufradat, it says, in this, God is pointing out that God only gives the knowledge of the unseen to those who are among his awliya. And this has been a point of dispute and contention and so on for years between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis, because non-Ahmadis said, no, now God cannot give such knowledge to anyone. The Holy Prophet was the last one. But this is their own dictionary saying. Use the word awliya, saints, mujaddids. And I find it odd that, when it comes to Hazrat Sahib, people start objecting, and yet in their own books, if read in detail and carefully, they say exactly the same thing. And this was what Hazrat Sahib said, that, these books, these things that I'm saying are simply things that you have forgotten. It's not that there's something strange or different. Anyway, with that, I take my leave of you. Tomorrow is Friday, so we'll broadcast our Friday sermon. And then, inshallah, we will meet on Monday. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz. Goodbye.